What is up, guys? It is Ethan Ryder with Soccer for Us Kids, U.S Kids. I am here today. It's hours before the kickoffs here on Tuesday here in Eastern Time. I am in Atlanta, ready for this Match Day 24 preview that I'm about to give you. It should be a good week. Before we get started, prayers out and hearts to everyone close to Emiliano Sala, the man who might has lost his life in a plane crash, but there is still private searches going on, and hopefully those are successful. But prayers and hearts out to those close to him. The first game of the weekend is Arsenal versus Cardiff. Arsenal were knocked out of the FA Cup by Man U in a 3-1 loss. Man U did kind of dominate them at the Emirates. It's not what they would have wanted to see, but Arsenal are looking still like a very strong side. This is Cardiff's first game since that Salah has gone missing, which is really hard for them because that was going to be a big signing for them. They needed a striker. They needed someone that can get them goals. If he comes up to become a signing, it'll be big for them. If not, they're going to have to move on, as sad as it sounds. The last game they played, they lost 3-0 to Newcastle, Newcastle hasn't been a very good side, but Newcastle is a relegation battle, so Cardiff have to continue fighting to try and get out of that relegation zone. Really, the question in this game is going to be Arsenal. What can they do with this mounting injury problem that they're having at the back? Bellerin's out. Socrates got injured against Man United. Koscielny got hit in the head. There are just different things that are happening to Arsenal in the back. Can they cope with it? Can they beat a team like Cardiff City at home? I'm thinking that Arsenal will come away with the win today. I just don't think Cardiff have enough firepower, and I think Arsenal will be able to really get back in Cardiff and just continuously attack them until they break down. The next game of the weekend is Fulham versus Brighton. Fulham were really unlucky last week versus Tottenham. They just, right at the end, lost again with the Harry Winks header as their fourth loss in a row. While Brighton tied West Brom in the FA Cup, they lost to Man U in the last game of the Premier League. It was an unlucky game against Man U. Man U have been really, it's just the worst time to play Man U. They've been so strong under Solskjaer. And it was a good game by Brighton. It just wasn't quite enough for them. Pascal Gross did end up getting a goal, and it was only 2-1. But can Brighton come up against Fulham? I think they can. I think Brighton will end up getting the win. The next game was Wolves versus West Ham. West Ham were knocked out of the FA Cup by AFC Wimbledon. Not what you want to see as a Premier League side like West Ham. But they are coming into this against a Wolves side who tied Shrewsbury Town in the FA Cup. So they will have to do a replay. But the Wolves looked really good in their last game against Leicester. A 4-3 win, a dramatic win. Hopefully they can bring that momentum into this game is what they're going to be thinking. The loss against Wimbledon was West Ham's second loss in a row. And that's a little bit hard for them. Arnautovic did sign a new contract, so whether he goes in the summer or not, he will stay for the rest of the season most likely, which is a big promise and a big positive for West Ham, as Arnautovic is one of their best goal scorers that hopefully can keep them in higher positions in the table. Wolves West Ham, that's going to be a good game. I think as long as Arnautovic plays, it could be a tie. Maybe Wolves come away with the win. Maybe West Ham come away with the win. It should be a good game. I would go for a tie, though. The next game is Huddersfield versus Everton. Huddersfield and Everton are two teams that have been struggling recently. Everton were knocked out of the FA Cup by Millwall after an unlucky handball that there was no VAR at a stadium like Millwall, so they didn't get to recheck it, but it was a handball goal. But they were knocked out. Millwall, that was their second loss in a row. And the Huddersfield are coming off of the loss against Manchester City, which was a tough loss. They lost 3-0. It just wasn't really fair for them. Man City just completely overpowered them. The next game is Newcastle versus Man City. This could be a big game. Newcastle was knocked out of the FA Cup by Watford. That's a good side that they played, and Newcastle just couldn't quite really punish Watford when they could, and Watford punished them. Newcastle really need new players. Right now, recently, I think it was about 15 minutes ago, Newcastle apparently have agreed terms with Atlanta United's Miguel Almiron. Miguel Almiron is someone that I've watched a lot. I'm an Atlanta United fan. He's a very talented player that works hard for his team. And I think the biggest part about this is just the fact that Rafa wanted someone and he got him. And so there's been a lot of times where they said that Rafa isn't being backed. Rafa's been complaining about not getting any transfers. But this is a player that he wanted, and he really set out to be a top transfer target for this window. And it's someone that they've gone out and bought if the rumors are to be true. This is a good player for them. He won't play today against Manchester City, but it's someone that can really bolster them. He scores goals, he gets assists, and he's just a top-class player in the MLS. Whether he really can make it in the Premier League is something that will remain to see, but he's a fast, skillful player that hopefully can bring Newcastle out of that relegation zone and continue to play strong under Rafa. Against Man City, however, they smashed Burnley in the FA Cup, who's not an easy opposition, but they absolutely dominated them. City are trying to stay with Liverpool. Newcastle trying to escape relegation. It should be a good game. City should come out on top of this one. Man U versus Burnley is probably the highlight of the day. Manchester United on such a good run of form with Solskjaer. Can they keep it up against a Burnley side? Burnley were smothered by Manchester City in the FA Cup. It's not really their fault. Man City is such a good side. But Man U are a team that look to make it, I think it's 9 in a row now under Solskjaer, which is kind of crazy. If they can win this game, they're just continuing to win games and play better under old Solskjaer. And so Burnley looked to shake off that City loss. It comes out they had a good run of form before that. Before that FA Cup loss, they were tying and winning games and not having many losses. But to come up against a side like Man U and Man City back-to-back is kind of a tough game for them. I think Man U will come out on top of this game. The next games are tomorrow, Wednesday, and the first game would be Southampton versus Crystal Palace. And Southampton have looked really good under Hasenhüttl, and he's really made them a better side. He's gotten things out of players that weren't being gotten out of them through other managers. And so he's really made them continue to have strong performances. While Palace lost to Liverpool 4-3 in the FA Cup, but they did end up beating Tottenham in the FA Cup. They lost 4-3 to Liverpool in the Premier League, but they beat Tottenham 2-0, which is a big win for them. Tottenham have kind of been struggling with the recent injuries, but Palace did end up getting that win in the FA Cup, which is big for them. They're going to have to try and shake off that Liverpool loss, but they looked really good in that Liverpool loss, really showing that if you give them the counterattack, they can get goals, that they're a really punishing team. So Palace versus Southampton should be a good one. Palace have looked good. Southampton have looked good. I think that one will end up in a tie. Next game is Bournemouth versus Chelsea. Chelsea have looked good. Bournemouth have looked pretty good as well. They're coming off of a 2-0 win versus West Ham, which was a good game in the Premier League. Callum Wilson with the brilliant goal and King with the goal as well. They've been really firing as Chelsea look to become maybe even a different team with Higuain up top. Higuain played in the FA Cup, but he didn't quite make as much of an impact as some may have wanted. Willian tried to give him a penalty, but he decided not to take it. Whether he gets his first goal against Bournemouth will be interesting to see, and just how much of an impact he makes. I think that Higuain is a top-class striker that can really help them out, but it just depends whether he's the right striker for Chelsea. Morata was a very good striker before he went to Chelsea, but he just couldn't quite make the cut in England. Whether Higuain can or not is something that is wait to be seen. I think he's a top-class striker that can change Chelsea. I think Chelsea will come out on top against Bournemouth. Liverpool versus Leicester is the next game. Liverpool top of the league. Leicester in the mid-table. It's top mid-table team, though. They look to continue off of their strong performances, Liverpool. They look to kind of maybe even shake off that Palace game because they let in 3 goals at Anfield, which I'm pretty sure doubled what they had let in all year at Anfield. But it was still got a win, and at this point in the season, like I said in the last video, it's just wins. Wins and results are really all that teams are looking for. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Liverpool if they can come out. Van Dijk is a question. He's a doubt for this game with his illness, but it's looking like more and more likely like he can play. There are right back questionable. Their right back position is questionable. Whether Trent comes back or Gomez comes back with Milner on that red card, you could very well see Rafael Camacho come in and play a right back position for Liverpool. Something that Leicester might try to exploit on their left side. Whoever's playing out there might try to exploit such a young Camacho, see how he plays. Leicester are looking good, though. They look to shake off that 4-3 loss. They played very well in that game against Wolves, but they just couldn't quite get the win. Head in the hands moment for Claude Puel in that game. Just couldn't quite get there. I think Liverpool will come out on top, but it'll be an interesting game. Leicester is not someone to take lightly, and so Liverpool, every game now is like a cup final game just because of how they're at the top of the table at 60 points, only 4 points clear City. They'll know at this point whether they have to win to keep that 4-point gap, if Rafa can do bits for Liverpool or not, and it'll be an interesting game to watch. The last game of the weekend will be Tottenham versus Watford. Tottenham really struggling with injuries here, with Dele Alli and Harry Kane both out, 2 of their best attacking players. But Heung-min Son is back for Tottenham. He's been out at the Asian Cup, but he's come back now as his team lost, and that is a big deal for Tottenham as he's one of their best players up top. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. He scores a lot of goals, very skillful player who's very fast as well, someone that can dominate this Watford side. We'll see what happens without Kane or Dele Alli. Eriksen's going to need to step up with Heung-min Son and anyone else that comes in. Lucas Moura, these players, Harry Winks, they're just going to have to step up in the attacking third of the game. But with these injuries, Watford might try to take that advantage as Tottenham are coming off that loss against Palace, which is not a good game for them. Maybe they're trying to have doubts with these injuries. Can they cope with these injuries? But Watford did have a strong run of games because they beat Newcastle. They knocked Newcastle out of the FA Cup, which is a big thing for them. It was just a dominant performance by them. And so it's going to be interesting, Watford versus Tottenham. I think Tottenham's going to come out on top just because Heung-min Son's back. He's such a good player that he's a match changer for them. And so with having him back, it may be a little bit easier to cope with those injuries of Kane and Dele Alli. Thank you guys for watching. This is Match Week 24 preview. I'm posting it in about as quick as possible because the games are coming up in about an hour. So here we go, Match Week 24, midweek games. Hope you guys enjoy the games. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.